In this episode, I'm going to go over mindfulness training for athletes. I'm going to discuss what mindfulness is, the benefits it has on your game, and then 2 ways that you can use mindfulness to enhance performance. Hey there, I'm Eli Straw, a mental performance coach who works with athletes from around the world on building a stronger mental game. Mindfulness means being fully present in the moment. It has to do with your attention and your awareness. So let's say that during a game, you're thinking about what might happen. So you're thinking about what the result of the game will be. At that moment, you're not present. You're thinking about the future. Or let's say you're thinking about a mistake that you just made, or even how bad your practices have been this week. Again, you're not present. But when you're completely in the moment, fully focused on what you're doing, you are in a mindful state. And have you ever heard somebody use a term, playing in the flow state? Whenever somebody is saying that you're in the flow state or they're in the flow state, they're talking about being in this state where they're completely one with what they're doing. And mindfulness is a big part of that because we're fully focused in the here and now. And the reason that mindfulness is so important and so beneficial to you as an athlete is because when you are fully focused and fully present in the moment, you allow your skills to take over. You're not overthinking, you're not stressing, you're not fearful, you're just in the moment and you're allowing yourself to play. Now, from a mental game standpoint, there are 3 main mental game challenges that mindfulness will help us work through. The first one is performance anxiety. If you get really anxious during games, it's important that you're practicing mindfulness. It's even important that you're practicing mindfulness leading up to the game because that will also help with this anxiety. But anxiety in sports is defined as this worry that we have about the future. So we're stressed and worried about what might happen. When you're mindful, this takes the attention away from that future, away from those stressors and those worries about what will, end up happening by the end of the game or what your coaches will think of you. And it centers your attention in the present moment. And when you're present, we will see that anxiety fade away. The same thing is true with the second mental game challenge, which is fear of failure. When you play with this fear of making mistakes and this fear of failing, whether it's because you don't want your stats to drop or you don't want to disappoint somebody else, when you're able to keep your attention present, you won't be focusing or thinking so much about those negative outcomes. And when you do think about the negative outcomes, this is where we see timid play and safe play, not safe play in a good way, but safe play where you're holding yourself back, take hold. When you're able to let go of that, refocus in the moment, we're going to see that fear go away as well. And the last mental game challenge is poor focus. If you have a difficult time focusing on what you're doing, so let's say you're at the free throw line as a basketball player and you just can't focus. Well, if you learn how to be more mindful, which means being focused and being present in the moment, that will help us overcome this challenge that we have with our focus. So how do you develop this skill as an athlete of being fully present in the moment? Well, there are 2 ways that I like to view this. The first way is training the skill of being mindful. So in other words, training the skill of being present. And then the other way is using mindfulness techniques to become present when you play. So let's start with training the skill of mindfulness. Now, as a mental performance coach, I take the approach of we need to train our mind in a very similar way to how we train our body. You're not unfamiliar with going through strength and conditioning programs to strengthen your body by the time you get to the game. You're not unfamiliar with doing drills to improve your technique and to improve your physical skills because you know that if you do so in preparation for the game or even for the season, you will perform better. We need to take the same approach with mental skills, especially mindfulness. Because mindfulness, it is a state, right? It's the state of being fully present. But it is a state that is incredibly difficult for us to get into due to the distractions that we face during games. So we want to practice this. And there are 2 main ways that we can practice being mindful. One is mindfulness meditation, and the other is through mindful activities. But both have the same core principle, which is we are giving ourselves time throughout the week. So we're pretty much giving ourselves time every day to practice being present. Mindfulness meditation is something that I use in my one-on-one coaching program, which if you are interested in learning more about my one-on-one coaching, I've put a link to that in the description below. And with mindfulness meditation, we set aside a certain amount of time each day, we close our eyes, and we fully focus on our breathing. Now, as we focus on our breathing, what will happen is we'll get distracted by different thoughts. These thoughts might be about the upcoming game, they might be about our practice, they might be about anything from our lives. But we want to see those as distractions. And what we want to do when we notice our attention drifting and becoming consumed by one of these distractions is that we want to bring our attention back onto our breath. So when we're fully focused on our breath, when we're doing that mindfulness meditation, we are present at that point. So we are in a mindful state. But you don't want to expect yourself to be perfect at this. Because as I said earlier, mindfulness is an incredibly difficult skill to develop, and being present in the moment is incredibly difficult for any of us. So it's this back and forth where we try to focus on our breath, we notice our attention drifting, we bring our attention back onto our breath. That is the training of mindfulness that we are after. And I typically recommend athletes start with about 5 to 10 minutes, and then you can work your way up. Now, with mindful activities, the same principle applies where we're trying to focus in the moment. So typically we want to focus on our breathing because that's the simplest way to focus in the present moment. And again, we're just noticing anytime our attention drifts. To perform these mindful activities, you want to think about the most mundane tasks that you do during the day, tasks that don't require a whole lot of thinking. Some of the common examples that I've seen through research and also I've had athletes use involve going for a mindful walk, where you go for about, let's say a 10 to 20 minute walk. And while you're doing so, you just try to stay present. You try to stay focused on your breathing, maybe focused on the rhythm of the walk, focused on the surroundings, nature around you, right? Whatever it is, but you try to be present while you're walking. Another activity you could do is when you're washing the dishes or maybe cleaning your house or something, right? But just an activity where you can be fully present while you're doing so and notice any of these distractions. And we want to see this as a part of our training as athletes. Because when we look at a performance, yes, to perform at your peak levels, you have to be physically skilled, right? You have to have skills within your sport, and we know that. But my guess is you're already training those skills a lot. The thing that we need to have accompanying these physical skills is a strong mindset. And part of a strong mindset is not just believing in yourself, but it's being able to tune out those distractions, quiet the fear, quiet the anxiety during games, and just be fully in the moment with what you're doing. So throughout the week right now, I encourage you to select maybe 1 or 2 times during the day where you can either perform this mindfulness meditation or perform the mindful activities. So that's the training part of it. Now, during games, you want to have some techniques in place to help yourself be in this mindful state. Because at the end of the day, the way you're going to play your best is allowing your physical skills to take over. Now, when I say that, what I really mean is we're not getting in our own way. Many athletes I work with talk about overthinking, and they talk about trying to force a good performance, especially when it's a big game or they're in a pressure moment during a game. They try to force things. But you're not going to perform your best when you're trying to force things. You have to allow them to happen. Because when you allow them to happen, what ends up occurring is that your natural instincts, your reactions take over. So in other words, all that work, all those skills that you've worked on developing through practice, they take over. And that's what we want to have happen. So how can you be mindful during games? Well, as I said with the mindfulness meditation and also the mindful activities, you can focus on your breathing. If you are a baseball or softball player, you can try to focus on your breathing between pitches. If you are a basketball player or a soccer player, you're running up and down the field or court, you can focus on the rhythm of your breathing. Same thing with runners. Runners can also focus on the rhythm of their steps, right? Just getting into that rhythm. You could also focus on kind of senses or sensations. That's something else that's helpful with becoming mindful, where maybe let's say you're playing outside, you focus on the feeling of the wind on your skin, maybe you focus on the sounds that you hear. But the whole idea here is we want to bring our attention onto something happening in the moment to help ourselves stay mindful. You could also use what are known as performance objectives, which are targets or cues that you focus on that are 100% in your control in the moment. Because if something is in our control in the moment and we focus on it, that means we're focusing in the present moment. So you could also use those during games to stay present. The idea here is we want to be as athletic as possible during games. That's when we're going to play our best. And the thing that blocks that athleticism is overthinking, poor focus, so we get distracted by other people, past mistakes, fear, so we're really afraid and we're thinking a lot about making mistakes and the consequences of those mistakes, and also the worries about just what will happen in general. So the more you can go through and practice and train the ability to be present through mindfulness during the week, and then you use these tools during games to help yourself stay mindful, you're going to be allowing yourself to be athletic as well and to play freely, which at the end of the day is where you're going to find peak performance. Now, if you'd like me to go through and make a guided meditation for you to use during the week, please let me know in the comments below. Or if you have any other questions, you can let me know in the comments below as well. Now, I also want to mention, as I said earlier, I have a one-on-one coaching program that is a 12-week program for athletes of all ages. I've put a link to that below, as well as 2 online courses. One is the Confident Competitor Academy, and the other is the Mentally Tough Kid course. Both of those are in the description below as well. And I also have 2 books on Amazon. One is Mind Games, which is a collection of short stories, and the other is Athlete Mental Training, which is an athlete mental training guidebook for you to use. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I wish you the best of success in all that you do.